This is Bill Parker with Parker Insurance and Realty, your locally owned and operated independent insurance agency. We specialize in home, auto, commercial, ATV, motorcycle, and boat insurance. Being an independent agency, we have the ability to find you the best price available to suit your insurance need. At Parker Insurance and Realty, we can help you package your insurance or find the specialty insurance required to get you covered. We are your source for any real estate needs, whether buying or selling, we can help. Give us a call today so we can discuss your insurance or real estate needs. Parker Insurance and Realty, 265 South Macon Street, 427-9345. That's 427-9345.
Are you thinking of selling your home or business? Hi, I'm Gloria, and as a realtor, I know that getting rid of the clutter in your home is one of the best ways to help sell your house quickly. At Jessup Premium Storage, our family-owned company provides a convenient and secure building for all of your storage needs. We now offer outdoor covered parking for that antique car, boat, or RV. Due to our recent expansion, we offer units that range in size from as small as a bedroom closet to as big as a one-car garage. All of our units are inside and climate controlled with 24-hour access and security. Our leases run month to month, so you're not locked into a long-term commitment, giving you the flexibility to move your belongings out the minute you purchase your new home. Stop by today or give us a call, 530-8003. That's 530-8003. Jessup Premium Storage.
They're cool, clean, and secure.
Our open house and ribbon cutting at the all-new Mike Butch Ford in Blackshear was a huge success. If you missed it, don't worry about it. There's still plenty of time to celebrate. We're giving the best deals ever in sales and service now through Saturday. Ask a salesperson how you can save big money with 0% interest for 60 months on select new Fords. Or you can save more than $10,000 on select new 2015 Ford F-150s, America's best-selling pickup for 39 years. Wednesdays in January is Ladies' Day. Ladies get a free car wash with oil and filter change. If you need new tires, now's the time. Just $5 over cost now through Saturday. Only at the all-new Mike Butch Ford in Blackshear.
If you're looking for an incredible deal on a new or pre-owned vehicle from the dealer who has always put you first, stop the search. Call the all-new Mike Butch Ford in Blackshear.
This is Sammy Dixon saying thank you. Thank you very much for your business.
And good morning. You're listening to the Big Dog, WIFO FM in Jessup, 105.5 on your FM dial. Good morning, Butch Hubbard here with you. 4 minutes after 8 o'clock on this Friday morning. It is the fifth day of February. And we're going to have lots of sunshine today. High today near 55. Low tonight around 33. Tomorrow, variable cloudiness, maybe some sun, maybe some clouds. High tomorrow 52 with a 20% chance of showers. Lots of sunshine on Sunday with a high near 56. The Altamaha River level still rising, 11.5 feet and rising. Currently here in southeast Georgia, we have 37 degrees. All right, it is now time for the world-famous Butch and Bob Show, and it's brought to you by Mike Butch Ford in Blackshear. Also brought to you by Jessup Premium Storage out here on the Waycross Highway, and by Parker Insurance and Realty, located on Macon Street in downtown Jessup. And Bob, we got a very special guest in this morning.
Yep, as promised, again, Delvis Dutton sent us a press release announcing his intent to run for state house in District 157, which serves Tattnall, Evans, and portion of Wayne counties, and want to be here in person to announce his intentions. And Delvis, always good to see you. Appreciate you being here live and in person. The World Famous Butch and Bob Show. How you been?
Great to be back. Doing well.
Haven't seen you in a while. Talked to you a few times, but haven't seen you.
Yeah.
What you been up to?
Well, we've been traveling the country here lately for the last calendar year. Ended up in 29 states, meeting with House and Senate leadership, testifying in committees. But it's been a busy year. But it's been educational, that's for sure.
And what makes you want to get back into this race up in Atlanta and be back in the legislature?
Well, it's one of these things. I kind of answered the call back in 2010 and dropped my net, if you will, and it hasn't stopped. This past year, like I said, we actually saw a considerable awakening among state legislatures, and hopefully we can pull things together in Atlanta and get in line with strengthening our states instead of relying on Washington to do it.
Well, the last time you were in Atlanta, what I remember most about you in Atlanta, you're not one of those people that kind of fall in line. You kind of like beat your own drum and cause some waves and try to do things differently up in Atlanta. You know, there's that mainstream, you know, they think they run the whole show, but you kind of buck that system a lot of times.
Well, I will tell you, I was all about transparency in government, and a lot of times that's not the favorable thing. But most importantly, I was focused on representing this district above all else. I made every vote as if it were my last, and I will tell you that I don't believe anyone will ever call into question any vote that I've ever cast in Atlanta for the 4 years that I was there, especially as far as how it impacted this district. So I took it very seriously. I never ran to be a chairman or a government appointee of any kind. I ran to be a representative of this district. So it's a challenge, but gracefully holding to that truth, communicating what I was seeing, and holding it out for people to say I don't agree and this is why, to educate me, or for others to say I don't disagree with you, but that was always the challenge. But we were successful. I mean, I think we stood in the way of some serious conflicts for this district and changed policy day after day up there. So it was quite the challenge.
If you just joining us, Delvis Dutton, running for state house in 157. The district is Tatnall, Evans, and just a portion of Wayne County. So what portion of Wayne County? A lot of people confused. I said Chad has most of Wayne County, but Bill Workhauser has just a small portion of Wayne County. So what portion is it?
It's, if you will, 341 to the river in the county. But I was in office when we did reapportionment, and it was the last day that they actually pulled the curtain back and demonstrated that Wayne County was going to be attached to Tatnall and Evans. And I didn't have a problem with it, with knowing that I've got family over here and it's the exact same culture. But I took it as I represent the entire county. Anyone from Wayne County ever called me, I'm not going to ask them where they live. So the way I looked at it was a blessing to me, because I got to come over here and really get to know a lot of folks. And what was interesting was Wayne County then had 2 representatives for any issue that Wayne County was facing. And I'll tell you, the way I look at this going into it, Wayne County's home. I represented them for a long time, and it's the whole county. So I will be reaching out and communicating to everyone in the county during this campaign, not just district lines, but just so people are aware, if they go in the ballot box, kind of 341 toward the river, Odom and Gardi and those areas, you'll find me on your ballot.
I think you'll remember that meeting down there at the county commission meeting room where all the people were upset because they had the reapportionment, and Wayne County kind of got, like I said, they used to have 2 representatives from the county, and they felt like, they had good candidates from Wayne County could win. But now, since the reapportionment, most people feel that it'll be hard for somebody from Wayne County to win that district, with it being with Evans, Tatnall, and just a portion of Wayne. Remember that meeting? Everybody was upset. I think you were in the back of the room there.
Yeah, they were all like, listen.
They're like, so attacking you like, hey, I didn't do it.
Well, they came to me after the meeting, like nothing personal, but this is not what we were looking for. But it ended up very well. I became very close with members of the community, and it's been one of the blessings of all of this. They were actually very supportive of me when I ran for Congress, even though they weren't in the 12th district, actually, wanting me to succeed, contributing to the campaign and those kinds of things. So it's been quite a unique experience over here in Wayne County, and I've appreciated it ever since.
Well, you want to get back in. I guess the obvious question is, why'd you get out? Refresh people why you decided to get out of it.
Well, I didn't really get out of it. What was happening, John Barrow was a Southern white Democrat, kind of a friend to everyone, if you will. And we got in that congressional run because everything laid out that I had to give that example in that congressional run, and hopes to taking Appeal to Heaven, which we started in Atlanta, and take that to Washington. And overwhelmingly, people of Tatnall, Evans, and Wayne supported that. We raised over $200,000 in less than 15 weeks, and it all came out of the district. We came up a little short, probably 6 weeks too late of getting in, but that was Lord's timing, clearly. We were trying to get into that runoff There was a base of folks in Augusta area that were going to come on board if we made the runoff. But once that ended, I honestly thought that thankfully my days in office were over, because I committed myself to doing what I believe was right. And little did I know I would be pulled into traveling, trying to awaken other state legislatures to what we're all about. And we now have 9 states across the country that are representing Appeal to Heaven in their House or Senate chamber.
And tell folks what Appeal to Heaven is.
Appeal to Heaven is actually a organization that I was involved with starting in Atlanta in 2011. It's actually the first flag of this nation. Washington flew that flag over his naval cruisers. The Appeal to Heaven part of it comes from John Locke's Second Treatise. Ultimately, no judge among men. When government and man will fail you, all you have left is an appeal to heaven. And on that premise of where we fought the revolution, we're living that today. We're dealing with an oppressive government in Washington, not across the pond. But you take Washington in mind, some would call him a lunatic if the history had been written a little differently, but he paid for 9 schooner ships to take on the British Navy.
George did.
George Washington did.
Mm-hmm.
And his first flag that he flew was the Appeal to Heaven flag. But if you think about it, what on earth was he thinking trying to take on the largest navy in world history? I mean, the sun never set on the British Navy, and he took it on with 9 ships. So he was a man that believed in the providential hand, and he believed in liberty, and that's where this country was born. And if we don't get the states back in this game, the state legislatures, the body of government closest to the people, if we don't get them back in this, we're going to lose this country.
Okay. And that's the Appeal to Heaven program that you work with, that you've been traveling the country with and putting together or trying to get, I guess is really about local control and states' rights, right?
Absolutely. And the way you do that is through transparency. If you take the truth and you hold it publicly, the people are smart enough to decide. And they'll see that in this campaign. There'll be a honest, graceful conversation of the way I represented this district for 4 years compared to what it's seen for the last 2, and the challenges that we now have because of that. And I didn't anticipate this. I didn't plan on this, but the calls have been coming for the last 8 months, and I had to really give it some thought starting in October, and had to work some things out to get comfortable knowing that I was going to have to take this challenge on. But we need representation for this district. It's clear for that.
Okay, Delvis Dutton in the studio with us this morning here on the world famous Butch and Bob show on WIFO FM in Jessup. So you're going to be running against an incumbent in the same party. When is that primary?
May the 24th.
This year?
Yes, sir.
May 24th.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Qualifying will be coming up, and so we've got a downhill sprint to make sure everyone knows what my representation looked like for 4 years that may not have been quite as engaged, and hopefully get them to the polls, because we've got the presidential primary coming up in March, and then we've got this election primary. It's just a little different for Georgia because of presidential race. But our election will be May the 24th.
Okay.
And once qualifying get underway.
Qualifying, I believe, starts March the 7th through the 11th, I think is the dates on that.
See anybody on the other party getting involved in this race?
Not that I've heard. Not that I've heard. It'll be a very uphill battle, challenge for anyone in the other party to try to represent this district.
Normally, you don't see current incumbents or incumbents get a challenge from someone in their own party. That happens ever so often, of course. But that you must feel that you can represent the folks of this district with your opinions and views and convictions better, or what?
Well, as y'all know, we saw passage of the Transportation Funding Act last year, and there was no basis for it for South Georgia to be involved with that. We passed a T-SPLOST in this region, and we are taking care of our needs through those means. And I knew when that was proposed, I actually had conversation in Atlanta that if our region passes it and Atlanta does not, that they're going to come with a statewide tax. And that's what we ultimately ended up with. And right now I'm trying to compile numbers from all three of these counties of what it's costing us right now. It's already affecting these counties. I know Tattnall County, it's costing Tattnall over $400,000 a year right now projected for this
When you say
year.
costing, less funds coming from Georgia, from Atlanta?
Well, they've actually capped that, but the funds that are leaving the county, I mean, I think right now with current fuel prices, it's around 14 cents a gallon that it's costing us because of that tax. It's the second largest tax increase in state history. And there was no basis for it. There was no project list that was given. There were no formulas given. So far, the only thing we're seeing, they're coming up with a 10-year plan, but it was basically, I'm going to tax you now, and then we're going to get the money and figure out how we're going to spend it. Well, right now, we're looking at only thing we're seeing is a $300 million expansion on I-95 and I-16, which is needed. It's not a question of whether we have transportation problems, because we do. We had means of actually passing a way of actually funding these projects without raising taxes. But that last year, we raised the budget by $1 billion, and we took money out of transportation. We took $200 million being allocated to transportation DOT. And then we came right behind that the next day and said, we got a transportation problem in this state. We got a funding problem for transportation. And then we proposed a $900 million tax increase with no reasoning of where the money's going to be going. We have enough money in this state to do what we need to be doing, instead of, if you look at all we're throwing into economic development for pet projects. So, but it more so was about raising as much money as we can for the next 3 years. You know, we've got an election year coming up. You can't raise taxes during an election year. And we need that money during a lame duck session for the last 2 years of office. So that's at the heart of what that bill was. But there were, the first vote had 60-something Republicans, conservative Republicans, including our majority leader, vote against that. The majority leader is now gone. He took an appointment and left the legislature over this deal. Our tax minds in the House voted against this bill. Ultimately, it passed, and we're going to suffer the consequences in the 157th because of it.
We had that story just a couple of weeks ago where the money's going, 80% of every dollar going to Metro Atlanta. You know, so like I said, they got 2 projects.
Taking our money from South Georgia and going in Atlanta.
Like I said, they got the I-95 near Macon project and the one project in Savannah. But other than that, there's hardly any projects in South Georgia.
Well, let's get to the truth of it. The Cobb County Braves, in the transportation problem they've caused now, $700 million is going to those projects around the Cobb County Braves. Now, let me tell you what happened to the Cobb County Braves, where they came from. My freshman year in 2011, we crafted a resolution. Resolution means nothing. But we crafted a resolution that said we were not going to support an $800 million expansion of the cap on that going to the World Congress Center to fund the new stadium for the Falcons. Taxpayer dollars didn't need to be paying for the Falcon Stadium. Well, they fought us over this all summer long, but they couldn't argue with us publicly because the leadership of the state.
Leadership, okay, sure. Right.
You couldn't argue with the points we were making publicly because we had the truth on our side. Ultimately, the legislature did not expand that cap. And so what ended up happening, the city of Atlanta had to give $300 million in bonds for the Falcon Stadium. Well, in turn, the Braves got upset because promises they'd been given did not come through for years.
Okay.
And so they get upset, so now they moved to Cobb County. And now the legislature comes in and takes $700 million and is going to apply to that Cobb County expansion.
Well, as we always say here on the Butch and Bob Show, it's always about the money, honey. We have Delvis Dutton here this morning. If you have any questions or comments for him in any type of way, you can text us. Can't call, but text at 912-427-3711, 912-427-3711. You can text in questions or comments.
Bob, you've been through campaigns before, so I guess you got your ground root ready to go? I mean, it's hard to reorganize, or was that easy to reorganize? How's that work?
Honestly, it's not as easy as it's showing to be right now. It's unbelievable at how things are coming together and falling into place with this. The support that we've got that are wanting to jump in and help with this all across the district. Wayne County is coming together nicely. And I think we'll be able to get our message, our example to everyone before they make their decision. But I will tell you, I don't think you'll see, I know from our side, you're not going to see a bunch of mudslinging and that kind of thing. This is going to be an honest, transparent conversation of what I offer the district versus, I mean, basically, like you said a while ago, challenging an incumbent. What you've got are two people that have represented this district, and people will have the information to decide when they go in the ballot box. And that's really all that I'm interested in at this point.
Okay.
If you get reelected, what are some things you'd like to see? What kind of battles do you want? Like I said, when you were up there before, like I said, you had that reputation. You weren't, you weren't party line all per se. You were just Delvis done what's best for the district, and it ruffled some feathers. Like I said, the establishment up there, they want everybody to fall in line and do what the governor wants, lieutenant governor, things like that. So,
well, I'll give you an example. The water bill that we fought. There were 4 of us that stood in the way of the changing of riparian right of water, and a couple of them were Democrats. They were principled Democrats, and what we did was just kept pounding away on the truth of what was happening with that legislation, and they couldn't argue with us publicly. And it wasn't until I wrote an editorial on what that bill was actually doing line by line in Atlanta that we got the movement for our amendment. But this was a 1.5-year battle. But we stood in the way of taking the riparian right of water and giving that to the state. And it was all about building a reservoir, quote unquote, a lake for North Georgia. I don't have a problem with them building their lake and reservoir. We need that to happen, but you cannot take the private property ownership of water, the riparian right of water, and give it to the state. So we stood in the way, and we had, bipartisan support on that. To answer your question, going in there, in this last year, I've been carried, I've ended up in a foreign land, if you will, traveling to 29 states and seeing things that we do well and seeing things that we are lacking in. And I'll tell you, in 29 states that I went to, not one of them were raising taxes. As a matter of fact, several of them were cutting taxes. Our revenues are up, thankfully. But there was an interesting thing that I found were principled, constitutional, God-fearing representatives and senators all across this country, and we're pulling them together to stand on that same foundation. And there's strength in numbers, so we'll continue that. Also, while in Mississippi, I saw a policy caucus, if you will, come together of communicating what was in legislation publicly. They would actually meet once a week, discuss policy in this meeting, record the minutes, and put it out to the public along with what elected officials were in attendance. So I would like to see us do that as well. And I think it started there with 4 men and ultimately ended up within 3 years of 68 in their House caucus, coming there once a week to discuss policy. And the day I was there, the governor actually came into this group to lay out his proposed plan for the state and ask for their help to help him, get that policy as it needed to be for the legislative body. So it's an interesting thing that what I've seen in these other states, red and blue states, that I feel like we can build off of and learn from. And so I'm excited on that front.
Okay, we do have a comment that just came in here, a question. I'm not sure how much you've kept up with the local situations going on here in Wayne County, but we have a situation where Wayne Countyans are up in arms about coal ash being brought in and dumped at the Broadhurst Environmental, possible train depot area, yard being built out there, so more can be brought in. The question is, what does Delvis think about our coal ash situation? Have you kept up with that?
I've been reading on that, and I'm actually looking forward to meeting everyone during this campaign, and I think that's a good thing that we're having this campaign, because regardless of what they decide in the ballot box, we're going to know what the views are in this county when we actually, come May 24th. I'll tell you that I made a point to be on the Natural Resources Committee when I was in Atlanta, not because it paid well as far as campaign contributions, but because I'm not a tree hugger per se, but I am very conscientious of the environment. And we had measures like this come through that we had to weigh out and had to decide whether it was for profit and special interest, or whether it was okay for the community. From what I'm understanding, though, if I'm not mistaken, we've actually seen some of it already dumped here. So I'm interested to see what that means for us, and what kind of impact. I'm looking for the facts of it. And
so you're getting involved getting the facts. Bob can give you the information on that. They have been quite a bit already dumped out there in the coal ash.
800,000 tons between, that's already been dumped in. They're trying to stop the rail spur though, because they said it'll be like 10,000 tons a day or whatever. So, but I said the big thing is they've got a public meeting set with Corps of Engineers. That's the next step. The issue Wayne County's trying to hang their hat on is that it could affect the wetlands, and that's the one thing Corps of Engineers will listen to. They're not here to discuss the rail yard. They've already got the permit for the to bring it in and all that stuff. So you have to go with the wetlands issue with the Corps of Engineers. So that's what the public meeting is going to take place in March. So I'm sure you'll get notified of when that meeting is, and you come
absolutely
on hand for that.
And I will say this: just because we've dumped some here doesn't mean that's what we need to continue to do. So
and that's what people are fighting. Like I said, they've stopped it. They say it this time, but yeah.
And I'll give you an example.
If you trust them, that's
sure.
I don't. Like that's what I keep asking. How do we know what's going in that landfill today? We don't.
Let me go ahead and read a couple of the questions here before we wrap up the world famous Butch and Bob show this morning here on WIFO-FM in Jessup. Delvis Dutton, former House representative here in our area, now running again to see if he can get his old position back. What's his district number on that?
157.
157. And we discussed this at the beginning of the world famous Butch and Bob show, but people tune in and out and they don't get to hear the whole thing. What part of Wayne County does this district represent?
More or less,
Wayne County.
More or less, you can imagine from 341 toward the river, top to bottom.
So 341 that goes through Wayne County from Brunswick up to Baxley, north is what you're talking about. This district.
Yes, sir. There's a few variations, but for the most part, that's it. But
it's still a large population of Wayne County.
Absolutely, and like I said, I'm representing, hopeful to represent the entire county. So I want to hear from everyone in the county. It does not matter where they live.
Okay, and another question here is: do you support the Convention of States?
I actually do, and I was a delegate for Georgia while I was in the House, and I was against it for 3 years. Adamantly against it, and I went to Mount Vernon as a delegate that was adamantly opposed to it. And
the Convention of States.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And it was not until I witnessed a room full of, I think we had 102 elected state reps and senators from representing, I believe we had 28 states represented there that day. It was not until in that room I saw the perfection of a delegate convention in the fact that it removes politicians, because we can rarely agree on anything. And when I was in that room, I wondered to myself, how did 13 colonies ever agree to anything?
That was amazing.
And that's why I took all summer long. So I'll tell you, whether we ever see that or not, I don't know. But where I come from it, I want a conversation, and I want a conversation of federalism, which is where the states have the authority in this country. We are 50 states, but right now we're a divided nation. We're fighting on individual fronts.
And tell folks what the Convention of States, what is that? What's the purpose behind it?
They're trying to get delegates from every state to come together and discuss matters of limiting the authorities of the federal government, such as possible, discussion of term limits on Washington, and also a balanced budget amendment. There's several measures out there calling for a balanced budget amendment, and the reason in that, 48 states required a balanced budget. Washington does not.
Yeah. Well, folks, you've been listening to the world famous Butch and Bob Show. Delvis Dutton, our special guest here on the show. I'm sure we'll have you back a few times before the primary election on May 24th. Bob, any final comments or questions for Delvis this morning?
Like I said, we'll follow the campaign closely and we'll have you back, I'm sure.
All right, thanks for coming in, Delvis. All right, the world famous Butch and Bob Show brought to you by Parker Insurance and Realty.